Alright, so we are back here. Now what we're going to do here now is to show the running config file by showing our other Cisco command. Alright, so at my prompt, I am going to type show running, and I can press tab, running config, and press enter. And as you can see, my router host name R1 is showing up here. It also telling me the iOS version of the Cisco operating system as well. Right, and if I press enter to go more, it has some areas of interest. We could see that the fast Ethernet on my router interface 0/0 is also in shutdown mode. Serial connections to are also in shutdown mode. IP interfaces, no IP address are configured. Right? And we also could see that line VTY, the virtual terminal port from 0 to 4, has no password, and it has no password on line console 0. What do I mean by line console 0? Line console 0 is basically that particular prompt that I am on right now. So if I wish to set up a password, I could set up a password on line console 0. But before I do that, I want to reload the router. So I'm going to type the command reload. Right? And when we reload the router, we'll see what takes place. And I will press enter. I will not press Y here in any case. And you will see that all the interfaces and them will start up administratively and then shut down afterwards. You will see how this will take place. I'm reloading the router. You've seen all the interfaces there have been start up. The state has turned up, right, while it was reloading, and it had administratively turned down afterwards, right, in the process of reloading the router. So I'm going to press enter, right, and I'm now faced by my prompt to get into privilege exec mode. What is the command to get into privilege exec mode? We type enable, or EN for short. Right? Enable. And what we're going to do with this tutorial here, we're going to set up a password on line console 0, which we have seen here when we had run the running config. Right? Line console 0, we're taking a look at it here. Line console 0. We are going to set up a password on that particular line. So we're going to set up a password and for us to get into privilege exec mode. How do we do this? So we are in privilege exec mode. What is the next step we have to do in order to set up a password on line console 0? We will have to get into global configuration mode. How do we get into global configuration mode? By typing configuration terminal, or we could type conf t for short. Right? And we are now in global configuration mode, as you can see by our prompt, router 1 config. Right? In order for us to set up our password on line console 0, we'll have to type the command line console, then press 0, press enter, and you would see now that the router interface has changed. The router interface has changed as R1 config line. Right? And then we could type here password. Right? And we could just use a generic password that everybody, for the sake of this tutorial now, we'll say password Cisco. Right? And on the press enter on the other line, we will type the logon command. Okay? To enable the password to get on. What do we do after here? We first type exit to come out of line console 1, and type exit again to go back out to the router interface. And before we reload our router, the first thing that we have to do is to save whatever we did before into NVRAM. How do we do this? By copy in the configuration file copy the running configuration. Remember that command? Copy running configuration, copy run to ST startup configuration, press enter, right? And now we could reload the router. Now if you type reload and we press confirm, the router is reloading, and we could see that we are faced with a password to get into privilege exec mode. Alright? So you will type a password here, which is Cisco. That is the passcode that We give it, and now we are in privilege exec mode. Now if you also run the running config file, running config, by showing the show running config file, show running, and I'll press tab. My bad, I was supposed to get into enable. Right, so I'm now in privilege exec mode, and I'll type show run config, and I press enter. We will see that our password, when you press enter to go down, has been successfully set up on line console 0. You seen it here? Right? And that password name is Cisco, and that password is there for everybody to see, for those who have access to the router, which is a bad thing. Later down in the course, we will show how to hide those type of passwords and so on. What we could do now is that we could set up a virtual password on line VTY 0 to 4, which is 5 terminals. So we could also use that interface with those lines to get in via what you call telnet. Right? So we have shown how we could console into our PC. We could set up a password on those VTY lines so we could telnet into our router. And a telnet must have a password configured if you have to telnet now through an Ethernet cable. So how do we do this now? Right? How do we go about doing that? So we are already in privilege exec mode. We will get into now global configuration mode by typing conft. You all with me, right? Alright, and we are going to set up a password now on line VTY. So all we have to type is line VTY 0 to 4 and press enter. Right? And for the sake of this tutorial, as you can see that the prompt have changed, we will put password, and we will put the same password as Cisco for the sake of this tutorial here. Press enter, and what is the next command we will type here? Login. Right? So as we type login and the password now has been configured, all we need to do now is to do what? Save it from whatever was in flash memory, whatever is in RAM, into non-volatile RAMs. And how do we do this? We exit again, and we exit out to press Ctrl C, and then we copy what? You remember that command? Running config, the startup config, and I'll show you a shortcut that you could use. Copy, run, start. That's our next shortcut way that we could use to copy that particular file, and press enter. Right? So if we reload our router, right, we would have a configuration. We will have a password configured on line VTY04. We're going to test that connection just now in a little while in our next tutorial. But before we do that, let us show the running config file. So we're going to show run, and we're going to tab. And if you press enter, you'll see that passwords have been set up on both line console 0 and the virtual line 04. You all seen it there? So for the next tutorial, what we're going to do now is to show you how you could telnet into your router instead of using a console port into your router. So you will set up an Ethernet cable, right, into your router, and telnet into your router instead of using a console port.